The smell of pine needles and cinnamon filled our living room on Christmas Eve morning. I stood at the window, watching snow dust the front yard in thin, quiet layers, my hand resting on the curve of my belly. 7 months along, and our baby was already changing everything about how I moved through the world. Slower, softer, more careful with every step I took. Dakota had left early to pick up last-minute groceries. My mother-in-law, Janet, had called twice about the pecan pie recipe. My own mother, Quinn, had texted to say she and Dad would arrive by 4 o'clock sharp, not a minute later. Everything should have felt perfect. The tree was up and fully decorated. The table was set with the good china we only used twice a year. A pot of soup simmered on the stove, filling the house from corner to corner with deep, steady warmth that should have made me feel settled and calm. But something sat heavy in my chest all morning. I couldn't name it. I tried to brush it off as pregnancy nerves, or the exhaustion that comes with hosting Christmas dinner for 12 people. But it was something quieter, sitting underneath everything else. I pressed my palm flat against the cold glass and watched my breath fog the window. I didn't know it yet, but my life was about to crack open right at that dinner table. My name is Valentina Willoughby. I'm 31, a registered nurse, and I grew up in Columbus, Tennessee, the second of 2 daughters in a family that valued Sunday dinners and honest conversation above almost everything else. I met Dakota at 26 at a hospital fundraiser, where he was volunteering and I was exhausted from a double shift that had started before sunrise. He handed me a cup of coffee before he even knew my name. That was the moment, if I am being completely honest with myself. We married 3 years ago in a small backyard ceremony at my parents' home. No big venue, no extravagant flowers, just the people we actually loved, paper lanterns strung between the trees, and a playlist Dakota had made himself that somehow included both Stevie Wonder and a 90s country song. We'd been trying for a baby for almost a year before the positive test in May. I cried in the bathroom. Dakota cried in the hallway after I showed him through a crack in the door. We were building something real, something solid. That is what I believed, walking into Christmas Eve with my hands full and my heart completely open. Welcome to Revenge Tomorrow, where stories don't just entertain, they hit back. Get comfortable because today's story will take you on a journey you won't forget. Before we begin, drop, comment and tell us where you're watching from. Hit that like button. Subscribe and join the family because trust me, you're about to get hooked. By 4:30 the house was full. My parents arrived first. Mom carrying her famous sweet potato casserole, Dad arriving with his big laugh and his habit of sneaking cookies from every counter before dinner was even close to ready. Dakota's parents, Janet and Gerald, came in right behind them, stomping snow from their boots at the door and immediately complimenting the decorations. Dakota's brother Miles came with his girlfriend Tasha, who brought a bottle of wine and a warmth that always made her easy to love. My Aunt Catherine and Uncle Raymond drove in from Dayton, arriving smelling of cold air and road trip coffee. And then there was Antoinette, my older sister. She arrived last, around 5, carrying sparkling cider and wearing a smile that was working harder than it should have been. I noticed it the second she walked through the door. Most people wouldn't have caught it, but I've known Antoinette my entire life, and I know the difference between her real smile, wide, easy, the kind that reaches all the way to her eyes, and the one she puts on when something is running through her head that she hasn't figured out how to say yet. She hugged me a beat too long. She asked how I was feeling twice within 5 minutes. She kept glancing across the room at me during the drinks hour, like she was quietly trying to make a decision. I should have pulled her aside right then. I didn't. Dinner started at 6:30. We all crammed around the long dining table that Dakota and I had bought specifically for nights exactly like this, big enough for everyone, worn enough to feel truly lived in. Candles lined the center. Holiday music played softly in the background. The food was delicious, the conversation warm and easy. Miles made everyone laugh with a story about a work trip that had gone sideways in 3 different directions. Gerald tried to explain something technical about his car engine and lost the entire table within 30 seconds. But Antoinette was quiet, barely speaking, pushing food around her plate, and once looking directly at Dakota with an expression caught between guilt and determination, like someone standing on the edge of a decision they have already made. The hair on the back of my neck stood up slowly. Something was coming. I just didn't yet know what shape it would take when it arrived. It happened right after the main course was cleared, in that thin, pleasant gap before dessert. Dakota had just refilled glasses. My father was finishing a story. Antoinette pushed back her chair and stood up. The room didn't go quiet right away. But she stayed standing, and one by one, heads turned. She had that stubborn, jaw-set expression from childhood, the one she gets when she has decided something must be said, no matter the cost. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry to do this tonight. But I have to say something because I care too much about this family to stay quiet." She looked directly at Dakota. "I know something. And I know this isn't the right time. But I don't think there is a right time for something like this." Short breath. "Dakota. I'm so sorry. But Valentina's baby is not yours." The words fell onto that dinner table like a stone dropped through ice. Everything stopped. I heard my mother's fork hit her plate. I heard Janet make a sound that wasn't quite a word. The candles kept burning. The music kept playing, some soft instrumental Catherine drifting from the kitchen speaker. My husband's hand, resting near mine on the table, went completely still. I pressed my palm against my belly. Slowly, deliberately. Then I lifted my eyes to my sister's face. Dakota stood up. Not suddenly, not in a rage, but with a careful movement he uses when something has hit him hard enough to require every last piece of his self-control. I had seen it only twice in 3 years. "What did you just say?" His voice was low and controlled. Antoinette flinched but didn't back down. "I said what I said, Dakota. I am not trying to hurt anyone." "What did you just say?" Quieter this time. The more frightening version. The table was completely silent. Miles had his hand on Tasha's arm. My father had pushed his chair back slightly. My mother was not looking at Antoinette at all. She was looking at me. I reached over and touched Dakota's arm. "Just once. Just enough." "Sit down," I said quietly. "I've got this." My father started to speak. My mother told him to let me talk. Janet pressed 2 fingers to her mouth and said nothing. I folded my napkin neatly and set it beside my plate. I straightened in my chair. I looked at my sister, still standing, still gripping the table, her face flushed, her eyes bright and glassy. She looked like someone who had fully convinced herself she was doing the right thing. That is what unsettled me most. Not anger, not cruelty, but the genuine belief written across her face that she was delivering a necessary truth. "Antoinette," I said, calm and completely steady. "Sit down, please." She sat. I looked at her across the candles, across the remains of what was supposed to be a perfectly ordinary Christmas dinner. "Now," I said, "who told you that?" The question caught her off guard. She had braced herself for tears, raised voices, Dakota erupting, or me falling apart. She had not prepared herself for calm, direct questions delivered without a single crack. "Valentina, I am not yelling. I'm asking you a simple question. Who told you that my baby is not Dakota's?" She pressed her lips together. Then she straightened her back. "Someone who knows the truth. Someone who cares about Dakota and did not want to watch him be humiliated without knowing." "Who?" "Someone who reached out to me because they thought I might be able to get through to you. Or at least give Dakota a fair chance to know." "Antoinette." I kept my voice completely even. "I am going to ask you one final time. Real full name. Not someone. A name." She hesitated. The candle flames trembled in the space between us. Then she said it. "Vegas. Vegas Blake." The name dropped into the room and I felt something click into place inside my chest, like a lock turning after a long search for the right key. Vegas Blake. I hadn't heard that name spoken out loud in close to 2 years. She had existed on the far edges of our life. A shadow, a suggestion, but I had believed she had finally let go and moved on. I had been wrong. "How long have you been speaking with Vegas Blake?" Antoinette blinked. "About 3 weeks. She messaged me on Instagram. She said she had been trying to figure out how to tell someone for months. She said she was worried about Dakota. She said she still cares about him deeply and could not stand by and watch him raise another man's child without saying something. And you believed her, I said. Antoinette's chin came up slightly. She had details. Real details. She said she saw you in April at the Westfield Hotel downtown. She said you checked in with a man who was not Dakota. She had a photograph. That landed. Not the accusation itself, but that detail. My sister had sat across from Dakota's ex-girlfriend at a coffee shop and listened to her build a story piece by piece, and had never once called me first. You met her in person, I said. She seemed genuine. She was visibly upset the whole time. She was crying. Antoinette's confidence flickered slightly. She said she had carried the guilt of staying quiet for so long and could not hold it anymore. I looked at my sister for a long moment. And I understood something that had been quietly true for a long time. A small part of Antoinette had wanted to find something wrong. She had wanted a reason to question what I had. Vegas had simply walked in and handed her one, carefully wrapped. Tell me about the photograph, I said. It was the two of you in a hotel lobby. You were laughing. He had his hand on your back. Antoinette's voice was quieter now. It looked like more than professional acquaintances. What did the man look like? Tall. Dark jacket. Brown hair. What was I wearing? She thought. A gray blazer. Your hair was pulled up. He nodded. I knew exactly which day she was describing. Which hotel. Precisely who that man was. Antoinette. The Westfield Hotel hosted the Tennessee State Nurses Association Spring Conference this past April. I attended as a featured speaker. I presented a session on postnatal care protocols to a room of about 300 nurses. I let that settle. The man in that photograph is Dr. Alan Marsh, Department Chair of Obstetrics at Tennessee State Medical Center. We were laughing because he had just finished telling me a long joke about hospital cafeteria food. The table was completely silent. I have the conference program. My presenter badge. Email confirmations and hotel booking records made by the association coordinator. I have my presentation slide deck, time-stamped and emailed to the organizers the morning of my session. I picked up my phone from beside my plate. I had learned somewhere in my late 20s to document things, not out of paranoia, just a quiet, consistent habit. A nurse's habit. Keep records. Know where your proof lives before the moment you need it. Conference registration, April 14th. I turned the screen toward Antoinette. Speaker confirmation, April 9th. Hotel booking made by the conference coordinator on behalf of all speakers, April 10th. I set the phone in the center of the table. I was at a professional conference. I was 20 weeks pregnant. Dakota knew every detail. He packed my overnight bag. He drove me to the hotel entrance and kissed me goodbye in the parking lot. Dakota spoke for the first time in several minutes. His voice rough at the edges but steady underneath. I picked her up Sunday evening. We went to dinner after. Italian place on 5th. I knew exactly where my wife was. I always do. Antoinette looked from Dakota to me, and something in her face began to quietly crack. Dakota dated Vegas Blake for approximately 2 years, I said. My voice stayed matter-of-fact. I was not going to make this dramatic. They ended their relationship about 8 months before I ever met him. By the time Dakota and I became serious, Vegas had started reaching out to him again. Texts, phone calls, messages through mutual friends. When Dakota told her we were engaged, she called his phone 14 times in the span of 1 week. He blocked her number. She created a new account and sent a message through his professional LinkedIn profile. He blocked that too. I kept my hands folded calmly on the table. When our wedding photographs were posted online, someone reported the album to the platform for removal. The report was traced back to an email address that contained her initials. My Aunt Catherine said very softly, "Oh my goodness." We did not pursue legal action at the time. We hoped she would move forward with her life. We believed it was over. I looked at Antoinette. She did not move on. She simply found a new strategy. And she found you to carry it out. Antoinette had gone pale. She looked smaller somehow, like something structural inside her had quietly collapsed. I did not know any of that, she whispered. I know you didn't, I said. Because you did not ask me. That landed exactly the way the truth does when it arrives without decoration. I did not say it to hurt her. But it was the sentence that mattered most. I unlocked my phone and opened a folder I had built over several months, one careful screenshot at a time. Messages, timestamps, license plate, usernames that appeared around our accounts at odd intervals. I slid the phone to Miles, who studied it before passing it to Tasha, then my father, then Gerald. When Gerald looked up, his face was hard and still. He passed the phone to Antoinette. She took it with shaking hands and scrolled through in complete silence. When she set it down, there were tears running quietly down her face. She showed me the photograph, Antoinette said. She sat across from me and she cried. She said she was doing this because she cared about family. Her voice had gone fragile. I thought she was a good person. I honestly thought this was someone handing me a hard truth that I was the only one brave enough to say out loud. That is exactly what she needed you to think, I said, and kept my voice as gentle as I could manage. She researched you before she ever sent that first message, I continued. She knew enough about our family to identify the right person to target. She knew approaching Dakota directly would fail. She knew coming to me directly would fail. So she went sideways. She found someone inside our family she believed she could turn into a messenger. I looked steadily at Antoinette. That is not love for Dakota. That is a calculated plan dressed up to look like concern. Miles leaned forward with both forearms on the table. This was not grief. This was not a heartbroken ex making a bad decision. She identified a target inside your family. She built a cover story. She provided false evidence. She coached Antoinette on what not to do so the plan would not fall apart early. The Christmas timing was not random either, Tasha said. Family together, emotions running high. It's the perfect environment for a confrontation to spiral before anyone has a chance to think clearly. She wanted Dakota to look across this table tonight and feel doubt, I said. Even a single moment of it. That was enough for her. It did not work, Dakota said. His voice was quiet and completely certain. No, I said. It didn't. I reached under the table and found his hand. He held mine back without hesitation. There is one more thing, I said, that I need everyone at this table to hear. I reached into the small side pocket of my maternity dress. I had placed it there that morning while getting dressed. I had not known with certainty that I would need it tonight. Or maybe I had known on some quiet level, the way you sometimes sense the shape of something before it arrives. I unfolded the paper and smoothed it flat on the table. This is a prenatal paternity confirmation. I had the test performed at 16 weeks. It is a non-invasive prenatal DNA test, 99.9% accuracy, the same as a post-birth test. I slid it to the center of the table. Dakota's full name is on this document. He was with me at the appointment. He has known about this test since the day we scheduled it. Dakota looked at the paper, then at me. There was something in his eyes in that moment I will carry for the rest of my life. Not relief because he had never once doubted, but something close to a deep, quiet gratitude. Not for the proof itself, but for the fact that I had carried it. That I had prepared. I had it done because of Vegas, I said plainly. Because I knew she was still active somewhere, and I wanted to be fully ready for the day she tried something. Whatever form that took. I looked around the table at every face. This baby is Dakota's. This has never been in any question. Not for a single second in our home. My mother took the paper and read every line. She passed it to Janet, who took it in both hands and read slowly and thoroughly. When she set it down, she folded her hands on top of it and closed her eyes for just a moment. I'm sorry, Janet said, looking at Dakota. Not because I doubted you, I want you to know I did not. But I am so sorry this is how your Christmas has gone. Gerald looked at Antoinette. His voice was not unkind but serious. Young lady, you have a significant amount of making right to do. Antoinette nodded without hesitation. My father, who had been silent longer than I had ever witnessed in my entire life, looked directly at me. What do we do about this woman? He asked, his voice very calm, which meant he was more serious than he looked. Because I am not willing to let this simply pass. We are already building something, I said. Dakota and our attorney have been developing a formal case over the past several weeks. What happened at this table tonight actually strengthens everything we have gathered, because it documents a deliberate expansion of her campaign. She didn't just target us, she targeted our family. I looked at Antoinette steadily. She reached out to you specifically. She met with you in person. She presented a photograph that was misleading and out of context. She told direct lies with the sole intention of damaging our marriage. In Tennessee, that pattern of conduct, combined with the prior repeated contact after being blocked across multiple platforms, and the circumstantial evidence of surveillance, builds the foundation of a strong civil case and potentially a criminal complaint. Restraining order, Miles asked. At the very minimum, I said. Our attorney believes we likely have grounds for considerably more. I looked at Antoinette. I am going to need you to write down everything. Every message she sent you, every word spoken at that coffee meeting. Everything she told you. Screenshots if you still have them on your phone. I have every message saved, Antoinette said immediately. I never deleted any of it. Good. Valentina. My name broke slightly in her mouth. I am so sorry. I should have called you the minute she reached out. She warned me that if I came to you first, you would know how to make the evidence disappear. She said you were smart that way. Something cold passed through me. She said that exactly. Word for word. I looked at Dakota and he looked back at me. She anticipated that we had documentation, I said quietly. That is why she made sure you would not come to us first. After everything had been said and the conversation had softened from confrontation into something quieter and more worn, Antoinette asked if she could speak with me alone for a few minutes. We went to the kitchen together. The soup pot was still faintly warm on the stove. The sound of the family continuing slowly in the dining room came through the wall in low, careful waves. Quiet voices, the gentle scrape of dishes being stacked. Antoinette stood near the counter with both arms wrapped around herself, looking younger than she had looked in years. I should have trusted you, she said. The moment she sent that first message, I should have taken a screenshot and called you. That is the thing I should have done. Instead I sat across from her at a coffee shop and let her talk for 2 hours. And some part of me, Valentina, some part one I'm not proud of and do not fully understand yet. She stopped, waited. Some part of me wanted it to be real, she said very quietly. Not because I dislike Dakota. I love Dakota. But things have looked so steady and good for you, and I think somewhere inside I was carrying something ugly that I never examined closely enough. She swallowed hard. I wanted a crack in it. I hate that that's true. But it is. I know, I said. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, I said simply. It doesn't. But it's honest. And honest is the only place we can actually start from. I opened my arms and she walked into them. I held my older sister in my kitchen on Christmas night, and we both cried together for a long time. Dakota found us about 20 minutes later. He leaned in the doorway, read the room, 2 red-eyed women holding mugs of tea, and crossed the kitchen floor and pulled Antoinette into a hug before either of us could say a word. She made a sound like something long held under pressure finally releasing. I forgive you, he said. No speech. No conditions. Just those 3 words, delivered like he had already decided them before he walked through the doorway. She nodded against his shoulder and did not try to speak. When he let go, he came and stood beside me. He put his hand on my back, low and warm, the way he always does at the end of a hard day when language feels like too much effort. You knew, he said quietly. You had that paper in your pocket all morning. I didn't know for certain tonight would happen, I said. But something felt off from the moment I woke up. I wanted to be ready for whatever came. He studied me for a moment. "You protected us," he said. "We protect each other," I said. "That is the whole point of us." He pulled me close and I leaned into him. And for a moment the kitchen was just warm and silent, and we were simply two people who had chosen each other completely, standing together at the far end of a very hard night. Our baby moved, slow and certain and steady, beneath both of our hands at once. Christmas morning came gray and quiet and soft. The snow had thickened overnight, covering the yard in a clean, undisturbed layer that made everything outside look newly made. We opened gifts slowly, with a particular gentleness that follows a difficult night, careful with each other, a little more tender than usual, the way people are after surviving something together. Antoinette stayed. I did not ask her to leave. She helped with breakfast and stayed close to my side all morning, and when I caught her watching me, she no longer looked away with guilt folded into her expression. She simply looked, the way you look at someone you are grateful to still be near. 2 weeks after Christmas, our attorney filed for a restraining order against Vegas Blake. Antoinette submitted the full record of their messages and a detailed written account of both meetings. The documentation Dakota and I had built quietly over months. Every screenshot, every date, every careful note, became the spine of something official and real and finally moving forward. Vegas Blake did not see our son born in March, healthy and loud and absolutely perfect in every possible way. She did not get the version of our Christmas she had worked so carefully to arrange. She did not get the story she had tried to write for us from a comfortable distance. We wrote our own. Dakota framed the paternity test and hung it in the nursery as a joke, and then we both laughed until I cried, and it felt exactly like the right way to close that chapter. Some people spend their energy trying to burn down what other people have built. The only answer that has ever worked, is to keep building. Stronger. Higher. Better than before. That is what we did. That is what we are still doing.